the growth is happening so fast. It's so accelerated. And I've been saying this in our own organization that business as usual isn't going to work anymore. You're going to get left behind. Certainly, Caitlin's first game, they were going to value. I'm all for that. I get it. People want to see that, but they also want to see, it's not just about Caitlin, and this isn't Caitlin's fault in any way. It's more, the recognition that there's general excitement about the WNBA in ways that we haven't seen before. And so we have to capitalize, to really ensure that this is a movement. We have to capitalize on those things.
Yeah, Callie, Lawson-Freeman. There is a lot of excitement about the WNBA, and apparently the league didn't know that there's a lot of excitement. And that was Cheryl Reeves, president of basketball operations and head coach for the Minnesota Lynx, discussing why the decision for why the game that the Minnesota Lynx had versus the Chicago Sky was not available for fans to watch on the WNBA app. The only game that was available, no surprise to anyone, was Caitlin Clark's preseason debut with the Indiana Fever, and that was the game versus the Dallas Wings. And so it created quite the commotion, right? Because it was really, I think, up until the day of the games, many fans thought that they would be able to watch, right, both games. And you see here, this was the promo that went up ahead of the game, and the only game being promoted is Indiana Fever versus the Wings. And so it was interesting because Cheryl Reeves, Callie, actually responded to this tweet. And she quoted it, and she said, hey, by the way, also in action, is our team. And she basically shows, tells the time and lets fans know, unfortunately, they won't be able to watch. But, if they go to the Lynx app, they'll be able to follow along play by play. And if you're in the market, you can come to the game. So she responds saying this. More ensuing discussions are unfolding on WNBA Twitter. And a fan asks, is there a reason why it's not being shown? Another fan responds, because they only care about Caitlin. And Cheryl Reeves, the coach of the Minnesota Lynx, Callie, says, that part. That part. Now, Callie, I have to tell you, my DMs were blowing up while this was all unfolding because people were sending me the tweets. And you had to kind of take a second glance because, wait, is that the coach of the Minnesota Lynx tweeting like that? Callie, it really took me off guard a little bit. Now, by the way, I just want to make very clear that I stand with Cheryl Reeves, and so did many fans, and we're going to talk about what happened as a result of the game not being aired. But she caught me off guard. But I am happy that she was so public and made this kind of stance for a few reasons. One is because she's a coach. She's also in basketball operations. Also, because she's a white coach, and why that matters, people are going to say, oh, Natalie, you love to bring up race. I don't care. I'm going to always talk about race. But that's because that's a privilege that she has to do that. And that's to advocate on behalf of her team, the players on her team, and the league. And it will be received better, differently, less critical, even though she is getting some criticism for it, than it would be if a black head coach did that. So I want to applaud Cheryl Reeves for what she did. And then she didn't back down from it. Those tweets are still up today. She doubled down on it in the presser. And she made it very clear, because I want to make this very clear, Callie, this is not an indictment of Caitlin Clark. This is not Caitlin Clark's fault. Caitlin Clark should have her preseason debut aired. Absolutely. But also, so should many of the other players. And if you think, because what many snide fans commented to me saying, of course they're going to promote Caitlin and only people care about Caitlin. Well, what I will say in response to that is the Chicago Sky's preseason game, their next game, was not supposed to be available to watch, and it now is. Okay. So I think the WNBA heard the fans, and I think the fact that there was a cell phone live stream from the game that, I don't know, all the numbers are coming in. We don't know which numbers are correct, but the highest tally, Callie, that The Athletic is reporting is 2 million views.
Oh, wow.
Okay, 2 million views, Callie. And that was happening of people watching a grainy cell phone video. Hey, Allie, shout out to you. This is the person who live streamed the game. There was a point near the end of the game that a WNBA representative came over and asked, hey, Allie, to shut that down. But look at these numbers, Callie. This is incredible. And it just shows that the demand obviously exceeds just Caitlin Clark. There's a general interest in the WNBA and these rookies. And the league needs to be prepared for this and show these games and be prepared to handle the growth and understand that it's not just about one player, it's about a number of players. So Callie, I have been going and going, so I'm gonna stop here because I wanna know, as you were watching all of this unfold over the weekend, what were your thoughts? It was just so much happening.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Cheryl Reeves was clear in her messaging. There was a preference given to Caitlin Clark, and it's not Caitlin's fault. It's deserved. I think the fans that she's brought to the game, it makes sense for the league to try to capitalize on that. But I think that the real problem that she's pointing out is what a lot of fans were really concerned about as soon as it was clear that Clark would be joining the WNBA. It's that the league is not necessarily prepared for capitalizing on the intrigue drawn not just by Caitlin, but the other rookies. This is an exciting draft class overall, not just with Caitlin, but like we just talked about Angel Reese. People want to see Camila Cardoso. People want to see all Alyssa Peely. Like this, there's excitement around these rookies. And so the WNBA just wasn't necessarily prepared for that. But I think that the issue is twofold. It's like incorrect messaging initially from the league, and then a lack of messaging following up. Because as you kind of noted, on the app, initially it said that the game between the Sky and the Lynx would be streamed in the WNBA app. So that's you want to make sure you have that information correct, because fans are going to look forward to things like that. They're going to get excited. And then to find that that's not the case, there was not enough messaging in terms of a follow-up. That's how you get what happened with Cheryl Reeves, because she's answering questions from fans and fans aren't getting their answers from the league. So then Cheryl Reeves is giving answers and responding. And so it creates a discourse that the league could have easily avoided. I mean, we even saw somebody produced a fake statement from the WNBA because the league didn't do anything to clear up any of the miscommunication. But I think the big part that the league could have clarified is that this league is very young. The league is 2 years older than I am. Okay, I'm under 30. I'm in my mid 20s. You know what I'm saying? And so providing live streams or broadcasts of preseason games is generally new. Like the NBA has been doing that for a long time. That has not been the case for the league. In 2022, the WNBA didn't stream or broadcast any preseason games. So this is, I mean, actually, and I think in 2023, they'd selected two. One of them was like the Canada game, and then there was another exhibition game. But like, that's, again, it's a process. And so I think a lot of people were confused about who was responsible for making sure those games go on TV somehow. Is it a local broadcast? Is it on the league to secure some type of national broadcast or stream? That's because the league is so new, the messaging was unclear. So I think if the league would have come out and said, hey, this is exactly what the expectations are, this is what we're doing, it would have cleared up a lot of confusion. And this wouldn't have become such a strange situation with like the phone stream and, you know, Cheryl Reeves tweets. You even have Dawn Staley being like, I don't have a problem watching it. I'll pay if I have to. Like, that's not how this should have gone. It just should have been a lot more streamlined. And it shows a lack of preparation, unfortunately. And you just hope to see the league continue to adjust because, as Cheryl Reeves noted, there's so much growth. It's happening exponentially, and the league is young. But you got to be ready so that you don't get left behind.
Yeah, for sure. And quite frankly, I'm not really willing to give the league any more passes about their youth because these aren't really new complaints about the league, right? And there seems to be, in my opinion, a disconnect with the league. honestly, and also the media who cover the league, right? And when I say that, I mean those who write about it, because there are a lot of people. The WNBA is a very diverse league, and the media that covers it is very diverse. There are influencers, there are content creators who don't necessarily write, but are very known in the W space, and they do a lot of videos and do other kinds of ways to tell stories about the league, and they're the people then who write about the league. And many of the people who write about the league do not look like the players in the league. And so Skylar Diggins was asking questions in media availability, and she noted that she thinks the media who covers the league needs to be diversified. And I'm paraphrasing what she said, but she did say that, right? And in addition to that, I say that because, right, here's the quote directly from Skylar: "The diversity of journalism of those who write about our game could be better." Right? So those are Skylar's words, so I don't misrepresent what she said. That's on the state of WNBA media, right? And I bring all of that up to say, Callie, because I saw this headline. It was a headline from Forbes, I believe. I don't recall the writer, but let's put that up on the screen when we have it. And it actually irked me, because it said the league wasn't prepared for the Caitlin Clark effect. It was something along those lines. The WNBA was not ready for the Caitlin Clark effect. And so here's my issue with this headline, Callie, because I read the entire story and it talked about a number of things. It didn't just talk about what happened, but the preseason chaos is what it led with. But then it also got into, you know, the travel. We saw the video with the travel, and Caitlin Clark has extra security, which she got from back in Iowa. And there's been a lot of questions coming up about security and travel and the kinds of planes and all of that. So yes, I'm glad that Caitlin Clark is here, because these aren't new issues that we haven't been talking about, but because it's similar to why the March Madness for women started to be covered, you know, like, and shown. A lot of people think, or don't know the backstory, but really it was a player who put on their social, right? The showing the conditions, the weight room, the conditions of what they were dealing with as players. And it got so much negative attention, right? That March Madness, the NCAA, they got put on blast and changes came. And once you started to air the games and we started to see more of the women's games, that led to more coverage, which led to people knowing about Caitlin Clark, because Caitlin Clark was there back then, right? Like, she was playing and nobody was talking about her because it wasn't being covered. It wasn't being showed. There wasn't the access. And so right now, these issues around travel and security, they're not new. And so I'm very, aside from the great basketball that we get from Caitlin Clark, I welcome this spotlight she brings with her because everyone gets to see it. But when you talk about it being the Caitlin Clark effect, Chicago Sky getting 100,000+ new followers has nothing to do with Caitlin Clark, okay? Today is Angel Reese's birthday, so we're gonna put some respect on her, but Angel Reese has a larger following on social media than Caitlin Clark. A substantially larger following on all platforms, on Instagram, on TikTok, on Twitter. And so I'm not saying that her impact is the same as Caitlin Clark's right now on where the game is going. But I'm saying is she has a very strong impact and she's very popular. And Camila Cardozo is coming from the South Carolina Gamecocks, which is also a very popular fan base, a strong culture, right? And she's coming from a school that's very possible coached by Dawn Staley. These players are incredibly popular. And so the effect is not just Caitlin Clark. You brought up Alyssa Peely earlier, right? Okay, we are celebrating AAPI month this month. Her Samoan, Alaskan, that fan base, like her culture, they're behind her. She has like singular countries behind her. And same thing for Camila Cardozo because of Brazil, right? And so what I'm saying by saying all of this is that not only does it seem like the league doesn't understand the magnitude and reach of some of these other players, because Angel Reese has a bigger following than the WNBA Twitter account itself, right? Like she has a massive following. She just signed with Beats by Dre, okay? And we know she has a number of NIL endorsements, right? She is a megastar. And it doesn't seem that the league recognizes her star. It doesn't seem like they recognize the star of a Camila Cardozo. And there were so many players posting and tweeting about it. Brittany Griner put up an Instagram post, right, about the fact that the Camila Cardozo and Angel Reese's game wasn't displayed. Natasha Cloud was tweeting about it. I mean, you had multiple players, tweeting about it, like just upset about this. And so my point, Callie, is that the media doesn't seem to understand that this is beyond Caitlin Clark. It's not just a Caitlin Clark effect. And the WNBA doesn't seem to understand that. And that's what concerns me, Callie, because if the league doesn't recognize it and it takes this kind of backlash to get them to react, you're being reactive, you're not being proactive. And so I don't know what the plans are. I don't know that you're equipped to really move the game forward if these things are not on your radar. Likewise for the people writing about it. So I want to get your thoughts on that.
Well, you noted just kind of that Angel Reese is not getting the attention, the recognition, and respect she deserves as a rookie in this league who's drawing a large audience, who has a large fan base. And I would agree, but I don't think that's only from the WNBA. I think it's also, you could look to her team for that. Like, look at her introductory press conference. That was a little bit jarring to see, especially compared to Caitlin Clark. And again, this is not like, I'm not trying to pit them against one another. I'm just creating a comparison. When Caitlin Clark was introduced to Indiana Fever fans in a press conference, there was a lot of fanfare there. There was balloons. There was clearly a dedicated room, like a lot of reporters. The production value was high for that introductory news conference. And then when Angel Reese was introduced to Chicago Sky fans, that wasn't necessarily the case. I mean, she walked into the gym and it just was, there's like a little backdrop. She sits there and everybody's like, this is how you introduce the rookie that you traded up to draft. So I agree
Totally
100%
agree.
with what you're saying, but I think that it's on multiple levels and it's concerning to see 100%.
Yeah, and by the way, I wasn't trying to exclude like the parties that blame, but the league is at the face of it, and there's the media who covers it. And the one thing I'll say about the Chicago Sky, because they did catch a lot of flack for that, but I also felt like there should have been noise about the way Camila Cardozo was introduced, because hers was just a Zoom. And when that happened, I said, why aren't Camila and Angel side by side doing a presser? So I guess what I would say to that is there seemed to be some acknowledgement from the Sky, because they didn't have Angel Reese do a Zoom. They at least set up something for there to be like, if you will, a press conference and media there. And a lot of it, the lack of fanfare wasn't just about like balloons and other stuff like that, but right, a lot of it was calling out the Chicago Sky's facilities, right? And
Right.
And so there was a lot that went into that, and like the Chicago Sky is going to have to address that, right? And I think they're under new leadership and they have plans to do that. So I think we have to watch and see what they do. But I don't know that I'm yet ready to say that they don't appreciate like the consequences, because you had the Chicago Sky account tweeting, guys, like like, I don't remember what they said, but they were like basically just as upset as we were, right? Because I think people were like tweeting at the account, and the Chicago Sky fan account's like, hey, like we're with you guys, So granted, that's someone running a social media account, but I'm just saying I don't know that they don't appreciate it. But what I would say is across the board, a lot of these teams at different levels don't seem to recognize the importance of what this is. And there are teams that do recognize it, like the Las Vegas Aces, who you cover. And can you tell people about that? Because the last time you were with us, I don't think you were covering the Aces. So can you just tell people what your new role is?
Yeah, I am the new beat writer for the Aces, for a local newspaper called the Las Vegas Review-Journal. I started this past Monday, so now I'm at the full week mark. I'm coming in at a really interesting time for this team. They seem primed for a three-peat. They're trying to figure out their final roster. They just hosted their media day, which, to your point, Nat, was highly produced. It was in a production studio in Las Vegas that was multi-stories. There were pyrotechnics, there were multiple rooms. This team is not playing about how they are going about introducing themselves this season. They know they have a target on their back, so it's a really cool position to be in, and I'm so excited.
For sure. And not just the Aces, the Liberty had great production value. We're seeing some pictures come out of that for how they handled their media availability. Even the Lynx, when they introduced Alyssa Peely, they had a lot of fanfare too. They had like the Hawaiian like dancing going on. Like they had a lot. No, I'm sorry, not Hawaiian, but like, you know, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, I mean, look at this. This is like what was going on for the Aces. So each team, Callie, seems to be like at a different place. But you look here at the Aces, and they have all this going on, and they're the back-to-back champs. And Callie, their one preseason game that they will have is also not going to be aired. The reigning champs, the two-time back-to-back champs, right, that have Asia Wilson, who we already talked about, who I'm sorry to let people know is the face of the league and best player in the WNBA, right? Their game is not being played. It's not available for fans to view. And you already have people talking about the fact that they're going to go in with cameras and do the same thing. And you reported basically, you know, that other teams didn't want to play them.
Right. I mean, I was shocked when I talked to head coach Becky Hammond, and I kind of noted, I'm like, what's going on with this one preseason game against Puerto Rico's national team, not a league mate. Like last season, they played the New York Liberty before, you know, as their preseason game. Again, it was only one at that point, but it was still against a competitor in the WNBA. And she was very candid. She was like, we could not get anyone to play us. And so we had to do something that's never been done before. They chose to play Puerto Rico and South Carolina because they wanted to give Asia kind of a curtain call moment. That's how head coach Becky Hammond described it. You know, that's the university where she went and made history. You know, she has one of the most decorated college careers that we've seen. I keep mentioning the statue, but the statue is a big talking point across the team. They keep on talking about how they want to go take pictures with Asia's statue at South Carolina. So it's very interesting that they had to do this. It reminds me a lot about just how they ended last season. They went through a lot of adversity as the defending champions to try to get that second consecutive title. And so when they went through that, their takeaway was, wow, it's really us against the rest of the league and everybody else. Their mantra is Aces versus everybody. And now before this season can even start, they're being reminded of that reality. Like, hey, you want to get some preseason reps in, you want to get some practice in, you're on your own. Good luck.
Right. Right.
I think that that's really interesting to see. But what I do know about this team from just covering them for this week, day in and day out, is they're going to take it. They're going to like put that in their pockets, and it's going to fuel them.
Well, listen, the Aces and Liberty, the two teams that were in the WNBA finals last year, are two of the premier teams in the league. And I don't mean that just in terms of their talent, but in terms of how they function as organizations and how they treat their players. And we're seeing other teams step up, like the Seattle Storm. And, you know, now the spotlight is on many of these other teams, especially ones who just drafted some of these high profile rookies. They're like, there's no more excuse making, right? Like, we need the plans. We need to know what you're going to do. We need to know what's going to happen, because all of these women deserve better, right? And, you know, one thing I will say, you know, like, again, Caitlin Clark is definitely the driving force for a lot of this, but she's not the only very major name and player in this. But I'm very happy about the fact that because she is here and because so many people are tuning in, the scrutiny and the calls and the criticism that has already been here is now hyper-focused, right? And a lot of eyes are on it. And I'm hoping that that force has changed. And I feel like I said, the fact that the Chicago Sky game is going to be shown, I hope that we can maybe get them to show the Aces game. And look, it's not just that. They're not going to have the Storm and Mercury, what a great way to let fans know about rivalries. Like, they're focused on Diana and Caitlin, but hello, Skylar Diggins playing her old team after everything that happened between her and Diana Taurasi. Like, the fact that we're not going to have that preseason game available to watch, right? Like, and so hopefully fans can make enough noise to push the league to show some more of these preseason games. And I would expect that next season we won't be seeing all of this again, because it really honestly kind of marred what should have been a very, very just celebratory weekend of Caitlin Clark, of Angel Reese and Camila Cardozo's debuts, as well as the WNBA Canada game, which sold out, nearly 17,000 fans. So it kind of marred that. So before we close, I just want to take a minute to remind people there were some preseason games that were played, and Caitlin Clark made her debut, and it was a spectacular debut. When I say spectacular, I mean that, like, look, I think most of her fans, or people who are fans of Caitlin Clark, WNBA fans, would have been pleased. The numbers were not as high as like some of her college numbers in terms of scoring points. That is because she got into a little foul trouble, but she had an amazing game. 21 points. 3 rebounds, most of that 21 coming in the first half, right? And so
I mean, she had 3 first quarter 3-pointers. So I think I wouldn't say that there was a major drop off in scoring. 21 points is not that far off of probably what people were expecting. That's a really impressive debut. That was the game high for that contest. So in terms of scoring, I mean, I get what you're saying in terms of the foul trouble, and I think that's also, it speaks to that adjustment that I think the whole league, even the vets and, retired players, were kind of trying to hint at. There will be a bit of an adjustment period. There's a different pace of game, different physicality of game, and she, I think, spoke to that on her own. And so that was the adjustment, but she played really well. And it was a great game. That's the craziest thing. 3 seconds remaining, Arike Ogunbowale hits a step back 3-pointer for the win. Like, that's good basketball. Arike she is prone to do things like that. Like, she's going to hit a clutch 3-pointer, but it's still, I mean, really cool to see. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought up Arike, because I don't want to be guilty of doing what I'm accusing others of doing, but it's like, that was a big shot by Arike. The Dallas Wings did win the game, and they were shorthanded, and yet, like, they're not being talked about enough, right? We're talking about.
That's why I'm like, we need to talk about them. Let's talk about them.
No, and we won't, because we have to like move on. But that's the point. It's like, WNBA, we don't need all of this other stuff getting in the way of us talking about the games and talking about the stars. And I did like that I saw the NBA was tweeting a bit more about the WNBA games, and I did see Arike's game winner sort of all over Twitter, so that was good to see. But it was all really great, and I just again want to remind people that we are commentators. Some people are analysts. Some people write. Like, we all have different roles in the media, but understand that our roles are not to just cheerlead specific players. So with us praising Caitlin and her game and what she did, also will be us pointing out areas where she may need to improve or work on. Like, I was surprised to see that she only had to assist, only because like she's such an incredible elite passer, right? And I think that's not a knock, but that's to say, like, they probably are still working through, she's getting used to like balancing, scoring between, facilitating and all of those things. So it's going to be really great to see like how things unfold, in Indiana. But she had a great season debut, and so did Angel Reese. The game that we did not get to see, a near double-double for Angel Reese. Camila Cardozo unfortunately got injured in that game and had to go out early, but Angel Reese did play through the game, and she had a really solid showing. I'm really curious for what Angel Reese's career is going to look like, because I feel like like Angel Reese is really popular because she's popular, but I feel like a lot of people just don't think she's the level of player as like some of the other players. And so 13 points, 9 rebounds, Callie. And we know that Angel Reese is actually a very good passer, so I expect those assists to go up. You know, I'm not that concerned right now about the field goals, 2 of 8. But I think that's pretty impressive for her preseason debut. What'd you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is what I expected from Angel. The 9 rebounds in 24 minutes is really impressive, but that's one reason why I was pretty confident that she would be like, yes, obviously we know adjustment period, but I knew she would have success in the WNBA because rebounding is something that translates. If you can get some boards, it matters so much. In the WNBA, you look at some of like her LSU peers that went into the league, like rebounding is kind of has been their claim to fame. And so she's joining a kind of a rich heritage for LSU WNBA rebounders. And so I think if the 13 points, yes, it's great, but like almost a double-double in your first WNBA action is what we want to see. And I think it's what people expected. So she met expectations, and I think it'll just be up from there. I think what's really interesting about that as well is like training camp is so short. It's the same goes for Caitlin Clark. Like it's not even over yet. So they've been in training camp for barely a week, like a little bit over a week. So there's a lot of improvement that still needs to be done. So when you're talking about assists and like our passing and kind of just playmaking, that stuff is not going to come together for a while because they're still forming plays and things like that as a team. They're still learning. Like it's not, they have a ways to go, but I think this is a good preview.
For sure, definitely a good preview. So looking forward to now being able to watch the Sky in their second preseason game, and the season starts next week. So I'm looking forward to that so we can watch everyone without restrictions. Get your WNBA League Pass if you don't have it. But listen, tap into this WNBA season. It's going to be really, really, really good, Callie.